Starliner Houston on the big loop. You are go to command final approach with tap stop 4 OFM, trigger next.
Here comes Sunny's putting in the trigger next. Tap stop 4.
Station Houston on the big loop. ISS crew perform 1.106 steps, 1.3 and 1.4.
Station copies, executing 1.3, 1.4, 1.106.
And the Starliner crew have gotten the authority to proceed for the final approach. Starliner is currently at just over 9 meters away, approaching at about 0.05 meters per second, or 5 centimeters per second, towards the known 2 forward docking port.
Again, NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore, the commander, and Sonny Williams, the pilot, on the crew flight test today. This is an autonomous docking, meaning they are monitoring from inside Starliner, but the spacecraft is currently flying itself. Starliner now less than 7 meters away from the International Space Station. All good calls on the ground.
Estimated time of contact is 2 minutes.
Now approximately 5 meters.
And Starliner passing through 4 meters.
Now less than 3 meters away from the International Space Station. Good performance calls coming from teams in mission control.
Starliner at 1.5 meters away, currently about 25 seconds from docking. .5 meters.
Contact capture.
We see the same.
At 12:34 p.m. Central Time, above the southern Indian Ocean, we have confirmation of contact and capture of NASA's Boeing crew flight test and Starliner aboard the International Space Station. Butch and Sonny have made their arrival.
Starliner's soft capture system has finished attenuating any motion after initial capture. Next step for the NASA docking system is to retract its extension arms to allow the hooks on the hard capture system to attach to the docking port on the Node 2 forward international docking adapter.
And with the arrival of Starliner, again, that coming at 12:34 p.m. Central Time, we have 2 American crewed spacecraft aboard the International Space Station. And with contact and capture of the Starliner spacecraft, we are now securing the spacecraft to that Node 2 forward port. First step in that is ring retraction of the NASA docking system soft capture ring. Once that's complete, there are 12 hooks that will need to drive and more firmly secure the spacecraft. Those will happen in 2 sets of 6. This takes anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes after the spacecraft arriving to the International Space Station.
Houston Station on the big loop, Professor, safety for hard mate.
Houston copies.
We're now about 6.5 minutes after initial contact and capture of the soft capture system. We can expect the hard capture hooks to start anytime after about 7 minutes from that soft capture time frame. So while we're waiting for the NASA docking system on the Starliner side to finish completing its docking procedure, let's go over to the International Space Station Flight Control Room.
Hey, thank you, Jim. We're following along every step of the way here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room. Flight Director Judd Freeling working hand in hand with the teams over with you over in the Starliner Mission Control, ensuring that everybody's following the joint flight rules that are necessary. There's Judd Freeling in the forward end. To his left is Diana Trujillo, working to monitor all the different steps together. Will Vu over to Vince's right is to Vincent LaCourt's right is Will Vu, the voice from Mission Control here in Houston, up to the crew aboard the International Space Station. Space Station has a couple of maneuvers in order to proceed with the next steps of retracting the NASA docking system ring on the Starliner. The thrusters need to be disabled on the International Space Station side, and the International docking adapter must be aligned with the NASA docking system. Teams here in Mission Control Houston verifying all of those have passed, so we're following along to proceed towards a hard capture. Again, we had soft capture confirmed at 12:34 p.m. Central Time. The hard capture secures Starliner to the International Space Station. Expect to hear some words from the crew after that hard docking is complete. In the meantime, lots to follow along with to ensure a safe docking, a safe hard docking of Starliner to the International Space Station. A couple of steps. Now, of course, after that hard dock is complete, we still have to go ahead and open up the hatches, so the teams here will remain on console and follow along through the methodical steps necessary to pressurize the vestibule in between Starliner and the International Space Station. That vestibule is the International Docking Adapter. Right now, it has been exposed to vacuum, awaiting for Starliner's arrival. Once Starliner is hard docked, they'll follow procedures in order to pressurize that vestibule from 0 psi to match that of Starliner and the International Space Station, same as we have here at sea level, 14.7 psi. That will take some time in order to accomplish. Now, because we docked on the second opportunity here, the second docking window that we were tracking as part of the flight to the International Space Station, we'll follow along to provide estimated times of hatch opening and the welcome ceremony, where the Expedition 71 crew will formally welcome the two first-time flyers of Starliner to the International Space Station, Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, the first to fly the Boeing Starliner. Bringing you live views from here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room. Flight Director Vincent LaCourte talking with the flight control team. We're all waiting for the hard capture of Starliner to the International Space Station. Again, soft capture confirmed at 12:34 p.m. Central Time. We're in a short handover period, so we do not quite have live views from the International Space Station. Should hopefully be regaining those shortly to show you some live views of the spacecraft, the two spacecraft docked together, International Space Station and the Starliner. Fellow Flight Director TJ Creamer was just passing behind Vincent LaCourte and Diana Trujillo. Lots of team members here in Mission Control Houston following along through the steps after docking the Starliner to the International Space Station. Visiting Vehicle Officer Dory Tomeko is following along with the teams over in the Starliner Flight Control Room. The visiting vehicle officer, a console position here in Mission Control Houston that works very closely with any visiting vehicle spacecraft. The choreography necessary to safely dock and hard capture a visiting vehicle to the International Space Station must be carefully coordinated, and even events on board the International Space Station must be coordinated as well. Again, we talked about the attitude control systems with thrusters inhibited on the space station. Right now, control moment gyros are the ones that are holding the International Space Station in place until after the hard capture, when those thrusters can be re-enabled. There's also an exercise constraint on board the International Space Station, trying to limit the vibrations during dynamic operations of docking two spacecraft together at 17,500 miles an hour. For those just tuning in, we do have a contact and soft capture of the Starliner spacecraft to the International Space Station. Butch Wilmore, Sonny Williams, currently at the forward end of the space station inside the Starliner spacecraft. Teams here in Mission Control Houston, the International Space Station Flight Control Team working hand in hand with Starliner Flight Control right down the hall here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. The teams are now working through carefully choreographed procedures to ensure a hard docking. to the International Space Station. After soft capture is confirmed, there is a series of very critical steps in order for that NASA docking system ring to retract on the Starliner spacecraft, pulling in the spacecraft for a hard dock. At this time, all the flight controllers you see here in the room are watching over those systems and following those procedures very carefully. This is not the first time that Starliner has docked to the International Space Station. Of course, we did have Starliner dock as part of the uncrewed flight demonstration that was OFT-2. This is the first docking with crew inside. Of course, Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, both NASA astronauts, awaiting for their arrival aboard the International Space Station. We'll be providing you periodic updates and continuing our coverage through the entire procedure, including the hard dock and welcome of the Starliner crew to the International Space Station. Again, we'll remain on air continuously through the entire procedure of hard docking to the International Space Station. The docking of Starliner to the International Space Station leaves